All right, what's up, people? I figured I would continue in the vein of trying to deal with difficult passages in the Bible, and I think that, in my opinion, this is the most problematic in the sense of interpretation. Not in the sense of like if I had to say, I'd say the slavery thing and the blood sacrifice thing are more problematic. But this one is fun because I I can interpret like 90% of it in a light that makes sense, at least according to their paradigm. But there's that remaining 10%. Okay, so what am I talking about here? I'm talking about the book of Exodus. That would be the second book in the Old Testament, second book in the Christian Bible. This would be chapter 4, and then we're looking at verses 24, 25, and 26. Yeah. So what you'll notice is that if you actually put this whole thing into context, you'll see that these three verses don't actually really belong in the narrative. Because if you read I think it's 423. If you read that one, you're going to notice that there's something completely. It's basically God saying, "Let Moses go, or I'm going to kill your firstborn." And then all of a sudden we switch to something completely different, right? I'm not going to fucking read the fucking verses to you. I'm going to let you go look them up. I'm going to tell you what they say. It's up to you to determine whether they say what I say they say. They say what I say they say they say. That was a funny one, wasn't it? That was pretty cool. Okay, so basically, right after God says, you have to let him go because he's got to come worship me or whatever, or I'll kill your firstborn. And then all of a sudden it flips to, and then while he was traveling to the way station or whatever, God sought to kill. He sought to kill Moses, right? So then what happens is his wife Zipporah has to basically circumcise her son right then and there, and then she throws the foreskin of her son onto Moses' feet and says, "He is truly a husband of blood to me." And then God says, "Okay, I'll relent." So those are the three verses, paraphrased by me, of course, but I made nothing up. I'm sure the King James is much more fucking flowery than my rendition of it. I can understand everything that's going on here, except for the part where it said, "And God sought to kill him." Everything else makes sense, even though it's an obvious interpolation. It doesn't belong in the flow of the text. If you pick up at verse 27, you'll see that you can take those three verses, meaning 24, 25, 26, you can take those completely out and then, super glue 23 to 27, and you'll have a perfectly, coherent narrative. So obviously this was thrown in. And the idea is that, I think, what was the kid's name? Was it Gershom? That was Moses' kid by Zipporah. And for whatever reason, he was not circumcised according to the law that he was already given by God, which is on the 8th day. So I can understand why God was mad, and I can understand why Zipporah did what she did, and what her saying meant. I mean, a lot of people get confused about that. They're like, what does that even mean? Now he's a husband of blood to me. Obviously, she's talking about the fact that, and this goes back to the blood sacrifice thing that I mentioned earlier, where I said that the Bible's kind of weird about shit. But the problem that I have is not with any of that. I think all of that, if you grant their worldview, that makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense to me is why God sought to kill him. Think about that for a second. This is okay. Now, we're not going to go back to Genesis, and we're not going to start talking about God asking, "Where are you?" Like, I don't know where you are. Where are you at? God sought to kill him. If God wanted somebody dead, wouldn't it be like just like a blast from the sky and it's just like lightning bolts all over the place and you're just fucking gone? You're incinerated. What happened to that one dude that fucking like one dude that was trying to, like, the Ark of the Covenant was slipping into the mud. Like, one of the dudes that was holding it up, like, lost his footing in the mud, and the Ark was getting ready to fall in. So the dude ran up and he grabbed it to try to hold it up, and he got incinerated by God. Yeah, it's in the same fucking Bible, dude. Trust me. We got comic books in here. But no, I'm flabbergasted by that. It makes no sense to me. Why would and it makes God seem like some kind of weirdo assassin stalker? You know, I don't understand. I understand like the second two. I understand, you know, verses 25 and 26. I don't get verse 24. And while he was going on his way, God sought to kill him or assassinate him. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Sought to, intended to. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Or does it? Or does it? Are we getting some kind of, how should we say, I don't know, switch of character to Zipporah's point of view at this point? And so she felt that God was looking to kill Moses. And so she made it up in her own mind to circumcise Gershom and throw the skin, that maybe that was all in her head. Well, hey man, if you were going to be a really good comic book writer or editor, you would throw that in. That would be like an aside. You'd be like, oh wow, oh I get it now. This was in parentheses in a, what do they call that, a thought bubble in the comics, where it looks like it's not a speech bubble. There's a thought bubble where it's like a couple like empty little circles and then a thing that looks like a cloud that represents their thoughts. So this is basically Zipporah's thoughts within the comic book. It's like, oh shit, God's gonna kill him if he doesn't, you know, he didn't circumcise. I'll do it now. You know, it doesn't have to mean that this is some kind of I don't know, doctrine of weirdness. Maybe it's just a thought bubble in a comic book. Who knows?